Charlie, thank you so much for joining us to have a conversation as one of the founders of Dazzle Angels, as an entrepreneur for entrepreneurs, as an enabler of entrepreneurs, as a friend, and of course, as a coach in the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship. Today, we're going to talk about processes, finance, and of course, purpose. So please, can you tell me a little bit more about who you are, your journey, and why you're in this conversation with me?
I like to say that I'm African, and that's because I was born in Lesotho, raised in the Eastern Cape in South Africa, but ethnically I'm from East Africa, which includes Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. And so I'm African, and that really has shaped how I interact with the world, my perspective on things, and my purpose even. So in terms of my career, I am a recovering accountant.
I'm a lapsed accountant. I did 2 years of accounting at university. So you're recovered, I'm lapsed.
So you got out early enough. I went a little bit further along, but it sticks with you. I'm sure you know that the lessons that you learn around finance, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think it built a great foundation for me around understanding processes and the importance of that. But it also gave me the benefit of being, I like to call myself a multi-potentialite, or as people say, like a generalist. And so I've had experience as a consultant in the healthcare space and public sector. I've worked in digital marketing, in healthcare itself, which is currently where I am as well. And then, of course, through Dazzle Angels, which was another way for me to see us give, impact Africa from a different perspective, in particular women, because that is something that really drives me. It's, founded with a couple of friends of mine where we wanted to increase the amount of funding that's available for women entrepreneurs, whether you founded it or co-founded that business, and also to increase the number of women who are investors. So, yeah.
So I'm going to grab onto multi-potential act because I think that starts speaking to even the entrepreneurship journey, where entrepreneurs on some level are generalists because they have to do a lot of things to get their businesses to grow and to, realize profitability and to obviously deliver on impact. So for me, I want to understand what is the importance, given that you've also had all of this experience in different sectors and who you are even in terms of your story, what is the importance of processes? And when we say processes, what do we mean? Because for me, when you say processes, suddenly I see a spreadsheet.
I'm sure, yes, with a spreadsheet could be used depending on how you want to, what are you doing in terms of your business. But process really is just the steps and the actions that you do to get a desired outcome, or whether it's building a product or a service. It's just what are the key steps or actions that you need to do to get what you're looking for.
Perhaps what you're talking about is what we call in the Branson Center the brilliant basics, the things that you need to get absolutely right every single time, every single day in order to get to your desired outcome. Exactly. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I love that phrase because it gets down to what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
I think people overcomplicate a lot of these processes, but it is, as you say, the brilliant basics. It's really a lot more simple than that. And it's the key things that if you do them consistently are the difference between the success or failure of your business.
Absolutely. And perhaps they also become the sense check in terms of before you start thinking about the next phase of your growth, the next phase of your business, or the next grand idea, it comes down to these brilliant basics, because if you can get that right every single time and consistently, actually your business starts growing. Am I correct? Yeah.
100%.
And so when we talk about that desired outcome, in order to articulate that process, would that desired outcome be what we call purpose, or is desired outcome something else when you're looking at processes?
I think a lot of people tend to think about the product or service with that desired outcome, but the truth is it really should be your purpose, because the reason you build your business is because of a purpose. And I'm going to borrow from what Pride said.
Of course. We're going to connect the dots between all our conversations. Yes.
Exactly. In terms of how she connected that the product is the vehicle for your purpose. So yes, it is your product or service, but the ultimate desired outcome is your purpose, whatever that is.
So, Charlie, looking at purpose as the desired outcome when you are now executing against your brilliant basics, I'm wondering if I can quickly swing us into you wearing your investor hat as being one of the co-founders of Dazzle Angels. How does process tie in then with finance that hopefully is purpose-led? That's sort of a 3-layer question.
Yeah. From an investor perspective, I'll separate the finance and the process. From a process perspective, it depends at what stage you're at. So if you're pre-revenue, the processes that would be important to would be valued would be, how did you go about determining your product market fit, the research of understanding the competitive landscape, why you and your team are the best one to run this business, to reach this desired outcome. From a post-revenue perspective, it's a little bit different. Now you actually go to the day-to-day, the brilliant basics a little bit more there. So again, why are you the right team to do this? But specifically looking more around, what are your actual processes? What are those brilliant basics that differentiate yourself from others? What are the things that can help you scale? As you brilliantly put it before, was, these things that you do consistently are what helped, if you get it done correctly, that you will organically grow. But of course, with an investor coming on board, help you, boost accelerate it, but in a way that it doesn't break the business.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that, what I'm hearing is that there's also the importance of the evidence of process. Yes. So in your sort of point of view, how can entrepreneurs best evidence their processes?
I guess the easiest is documented.
Yes.
It's the best way. I know a lot of people panic when they hear I have to document everything, but I think, and I'm going to love using your brilliant basics, it's not about everything, not about every single thing that you do, but just the key aspects of your recipe that get documented. And there's also interesting ways that you can document that through like video. You don't want to actually type it out. But definitely it needs to be documented, because sometimes a lot of the stuff gets stuck in particular entrepreneurs' heads. And when you want to scale, you need to pass it on to other people.
Absolutely.
Whether it's outsourced service providers or staff. And if it's stuck in your head, you can try and explain it 100 times to different people, but they most likely won't even get your purpose involved in that process. And so it won't result in the same outcomes.
Yeah. I often talk about the syndrome where when we start our businesses, we have all the things in our heads, and maybe there's a core team that understands what's going on. And then we only articulate that to the rest of our community, be it our people, our clients, our customers. We only articulate that maybe at a team getaway, or now when we're in crisis and we're trying to get back from a crisis, or maybe we're launching something. And so it becomes these periodic things. Meanwhile, it all sits in your private journal, and you're just, thinking about your processes and your brilliant basics. Whereas when it is articulated and documented, and I love the idea of, it isn't actually about a complicated manual, but it can be, the short video, it can be infographics, it can be, short documents, it can be interviews, it can be podcasts.
Exactly.
I think that's really, really interesting. And I think there's so many different tools out there that allow for us to collaborate on these things, that allow for us to evidence our processes so that we can present them to our potential investors who will provide us a finance that will actually help us accelerate the growth of our businesses. So if you're sitting on the investment committee, you're happy to receive a video that talks about processes, right?
Yeah, I am actually. I probably would prefer it.
Exactly. And I think for me, that's a huge revelation because we think we have to be so serious and only present these sort of information decks where everything is written big English. Meanwhile, a video that shows something could be very relevant and still document your process and be evidence for your team.
Yeah. Another key thing that I didn't mention earlier was also your metrics, your KPIs. I think we tend to keep and KPIs are key performance indicators. It tends to be very financially driven, but I think if you start to incorporate them more from the perspective of what your purpose is, that helps to ensure, based on what you were saying earlier, that your larger team is constantly aware of what the purpose is because they know what they're being measured against, not only from the performance of the processes, but also just the outcomes as well.
And I think for me, it goes then into my specific position, even in the Branson Center, where I look after partnerships. And so my question is, or perhaps my thought is, when you start, articulating your purpose, even in a finance conversation, in a conversation about processes, suddenly everybody in that conversation with you is now a partner as opposed to being part of a transaction. So I think I'm starting to wonder, can entrepreneurs start even approaching investors as partners as opposed to saying, I need something from you, give me, and then I'll prove to you, whereas let's work on something together.
I mean, it's 100% a partnership. I think it's wrong for anyone to think that it's not. When you bring an investor into your business, whether it's equity or grant or even a loan, there are transactional things that have to happen, or there are expectations on either side, but also they can influence the direction of your business. So if you bring in the wrong partner, the wrong investor on board, that will change the trajectory of your business.
Yeah.
So 100% they're a partner.
And I think then that's the idea of, if you can articulate your purpose, it will also start letting you know if you are even in the right conversation with the right investor, where the conversation isn't about the cash injection or the resources coming in, but the influence that they might have on where this business is going against my purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, from our end, when we consider investing in someone, we think about what can we give more than just money? Is this business aligned with our own values as an angel investment group? And I encourage every single entrepreneur who's looking for financing to do exactly the same thing, to do their own due diligence of the investors that they want to approach, to understand what are their values and what is their own purpose, and does it align with your business's values and purpose.
And so it's this idea of saying, first of all, I'm an entrepreneur who wants to come in and pitch. Can I pitch with purpose? Can I lead with purpose when I pitch to an investor?
Yes, you can.
Oh, that was as easy as that.
100%. I mean, obviously, again, it is aligned with who the investor is. And if you've gone to the wrong type of investor, then, of course, if they shoot you down immediately, it's the wrong investor.
Yeah. And so perhaps, because I know when we start talking finance, people either get a bit anxious or then they kind of step into this world of boundless possibilities, which then gets overwhelming. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions that from my side, where I'm not a finance person, might not even be real questions. So when we talk finance, what do we mean in terms of being an investor? What kinds of options exist for entrepreneurs out there? Perhaps maybe that are relevant to the startup scene in South Africa, to entrepreneurs who have impact by design, entrepreneurs who are looking at growing their businesses in a way that also delivers on impact.
Right. So I guess it depends on where you're looking. If you're looking within the continent or abroad, there are different types. So you'll get like angel investors, which is what Dazzle Angels is. They come in quite early stage. They take a bigger risk than other investors would because they tend to put in a lot. They tend to be a lot more hands-on and will be more aligned with your purpose than a lot of the others, because the others tend to be more funds and organizations. You get private equity. That's at a much later stage. Your business is really going to grow. It's probably you potentially one day want to be listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange type of level.
Okay.
because of the type of returns that they're looking for and the type of evidence they're looking for. You're a really established business. There's venture capital, and that varies. You can be at, I would say, not well, it depends if pre-revenue, if you've had successful businesses before. But you tend to be at a stage where you're post-revenue. You're in a business that has a lot of technology in it. So it's seen that it can scale affordably. But if you're looking for impact, I wouldn't necessarily look at that type of investor because they're pretty much interested in the bottom line.
Right.
They're looking for like 10x
Yeah.
return on their investment in like 3 to 5 years.
Right.
It's not always
It's quite
feasible.
aggressive, yes.
It's very aggressive. And then from an impact perspective, you get development finance institutions. But again, those would be for a larger, more established, or if you're looking to do really large scale type of impact, go to them. They tend to come in to support you when you want to go get investment from a traditional bank.
Right.
But the bank is not looking at you because they feel that you're a bit risky. And so they can come and de-risk you, which is in essence what an angel investor does for early startups.
Right.
As well, but this is more for larger scale growth. Then you also get impact funds. There are some impact funds that exist out there that are interested in the social aspect. So they do want you to be sustainable from a profitability perspective, but their metrics for success are more than just money. So they start to look at, depending on what they're, so if they're green financing, they're looking at how are you impacting from the green finance perspective, or if it's gender lens, then they're investing in women.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think we get quite muddled up in terms of what options exist for us. And so we either then think there's nothing out there, or we think we should qualify for everything because of the things that we're reading. What are your thoughts then on what we would call almost traditional financing from, let's say, existing financial institutions like banks? So the types of loans that exist, the kinds of solutions that exist from the banks, is that also a form of financing?
Yes, it is. But that, I would say you'd have to be a relatively established business, and it's probably easier. And when I say established, just, I guess, 3 years or more. And you've been banking with that bank consistently, so they can see how what your finances look like. And so they might offer things like an overdraft. So it'd start off small like that, like an overdraft, and then you can increase your overdraft or rolling credit on your business credit card. When you want like big financing from their investment arms, you have to be big because they are looking for people who are looking for like hundreds of millions of rands. So it becomes a bit challenging for small businesses to get access to large investments from banks.
Which is important for us to know because it's about keeping it real. So it's saying whilst you maybe do bank with X bank, it might not be your home right now for the financing that you need for your business. And it doesn't mean your business is not good.
Yeah.
It's just that looking at what their indicators of success are and where you're at, the alignment isn't there. So here are the other options. And I think that's the value of us having this conversation where finance isn't about the numbers and how much do you need in your business, but where can you go and how do you get into those spaces to access finance for your business? Because at the same time, finance obviously becomes one of the aspects of the things that enable an entrepreneur. In the Branson Center, we talk about giving access to network, finance, and markets. So at the same time, this is not the be-all and end-all. And so it's interesting, and I think it's important for us to link this conversation between finance, the brilliant basics, and then, of course, purpose. And so you've been absolutely amazing in giving us insight into that. So then, quick fire. What is Charlotte's purpose?
So my purpose is to change the narrative that Africans, and in particular African women, have of themselves.
Okay. What does it mean when my business accesses finance?
So that depends. It depends on what you're looking for. So is it a short term, I just need to manage working capital? Is it I want to grow? So it means I don't have enough cash, or I want to keep my cash in my bank for something else, and I'm looking outside of my business for external financing to either manage my working capital better or to grow the business.
Okay. Getting my brilliant basics right means?
Knowing what the key steps or actions are in my business that make or break it.
If you had limitless access to investment funds and you can invest in one thing, real or not real, what would it be?
There's so many things I would invest.
One thing.
Oh, there's so many things. I would. I'm going to cheat a little here. I would create a fund that gives away money for working capital for women-owned businesses.
Wonderful. So that's not cheating. That's a real thing. I want to be a part of that. Thank you so much, Charlie, for this conversation. I think I've learned a lot around what exists in the world of finance, what it's like to talk to somebody who sits in the position of being able to make some investments, and at the same time, the importance of processes in order to make sure that we can access finance and deliver on our purpose. So thank you for your time and for this conversation.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah.